Good morning. Welcome to Money and Mindset with the Doctors. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, and my partner TG is Dr. Thyonne Gordon, Dr. Story Genius. Hey, Dr. TG, how are you today? Maybe there's a little bit of a delay there. How you doing, Mama? Can you hear?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You sound like me when I'm out in that Jamaica mon and
We got
technology is
our,
woo, 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 woo.
that's right, because we have our own Jamaica right at home. I'm out in the park, but I'm in my car. So I'm not in the park because it's kind of noisy out here. A lot of people working out and everything. But
Oh,
yes, good morning. I'm up and at 'em, even though I was up until the crack of dawn already. I just said, oh, well, I may as well get up and go work out since I'm tired already.
that's consistency, that's dedication, that's getting it in. That's what we do,
That
right? We get
is,
it.
it is getting it in. It really is. It really is. So I'm so happy we have a guest today. So I don't have to talk. I can disappear and let the guest talk. Who are we speaking with today?
Oh my goodness, we have such a great guest today. Today, Eric Bell is with us, and Eric is known as a wealth preservationist. And so we have talked offline about just some of the opportunities while people are sort of getting reacclimated, ready to get active again, but also looking at what are the opportunities in business, in finance, in terms of reassessing your wealth goals. What are the opportunities right now to be considering and planning for? So it'll be a real, I think, exciting conversation with him discussing some of those opportunities that if you're creating more wealth, making sure that you have a strategy to preserve it as you go along.
Oh, wow. Yes, I really need to hear Eric. So I'm going to probably be backstage while you're talking to him. But meanwhile, how is the wellness center coming? I see books behind you. So I'm going to guess that you're not back in Jamaica at the wellness center.
Not yet, but heading there soon. We've got lots of great progress that's happened over the last week. My partner was up for a call based on the South Africa part of that business. Look, I saw your message. I should have been up on a Zoom call at the time you were trying to go to sleep. And I was like, nah, I'll let somebody else take those notes.
Sometimes you have to let other people take the notes. You need to just get your own stuff in. I couldn't do that
Yes.
last night though. Well, I'm glad that 420 Wellness is going to be kicking off and doing what it needs to do. And I can't wait to get back to Jamaica and see what the spa experience looks like. I've been seeing some of the tidbits of your ads coming out, which is amazing.
Thank
So
you.
that's
Thank you.
amazing, amazing.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So when we speak with Eric today, one of the things that I would love to know from him, and I guess I can chime in and ask the question, is about the new phase. Is it a phase? Is it a trend of cryptocurrency? So it'll be great. Um, phasing out again, but he'll Harper a digital black wallet. He's going to be going on currency, and he's country and give away cryptocurrency to young people.
Hmm.
Again, give away cryptocurrency to young people because this is our next generation. This is the currency that is coming about. A lot of people are saying it's not real. You're not going to do it. Well, Elon Musk is selling as
I can't hear all
people
of
of
your
color.
delay. Your delay is a little bit slow. So maybe what you can do is if you send me the message in the chat, then I'll make sure I raise the question with Eric.
The would be something I
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring Eric into the stream. We'll let Dr. Thyonne hang out backstage. Hey, how you doing, Eric?
Pretty good. How you doing, Stephanie?
Good. So as I was sharing with the audience and with Dr. Thyonne, Mr. Eric, as our wealth preservationist, you've come from an illustrious background, starting off with banking, securities, finance. I was looking at your notes going, hey, insurance, real estate, you know, overall, all of those ingredients that when we think about, those are parts of the puzzle of creating a wealth portfolio, right? You've got to live somewhere, you need to own something, you need insurance to not only protect yourself, but when I think of you and insurance, it's not about the auto insurance or the home insurance. You're talking about insurance that we use to create wealth, on a whole nother plateau. I'm always excited about speaking to you because we share the roots of being both from the Bay Area. So we have that Bay Area connection,
Yep.
as well as this how we ended up in Orange County and connected. That's a story within itself, right? A story from the Bay to, OC, if you will. But the part that I think I would say that I enjoy so much when I hear you speak or when we discuss, your perspective in looking at how you not only capture but preserve wealth. I think the part that's exciting for me is that you have so much more, or shall I say, more advanced tools than what I typically came across. When I looked at other conversations with people about, for example, securities or insurance, or some of the limited conversations about real estate, or even what to do with a company's business and or assets. So before I get too far gone in that, in that conversation, what I'd like to say is, one, welcome to Money and Mindset with the Doctors.
Thanks for having me.
He is out there in the park. So she's going to let us have this conversation and throw in a few questions as we go along. So first of all, how are you? How's your family doing?
I'm good. Family's good. No one has COVID, so we're excited about that. We're trying to stay that way. So it's good.
Yeah. So typically, are you out and about, or have you been one of the ones kind of hiding in the house? Kind of what has been your approach to moving around and connecting as it relates to business during this time?
Well, during that first year, first 9 months, I was in the house primarily because nobody would come out and see me. So I'd say the last 5 months I've been out and about. I was in Florida with some cryptocurrency people, and I heard Thyonne currency. I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
And you call me a wealth preservationist, and I'll take that. But one of the biggest threats on your wealth a lot of times is taxes.
Wow.
So that's the thing that I kind of focus on, tax mitigation. I had a long, illustrious corporate career, as you know, but I have my own practice now. My focus is tax mitigation. Women and men that I worked with during the last 15, 20 years, they also have had it with corporate life, and they have their own practices. And we just collaborate and partner to try to bring the best of what we know to our clients. So it's a non-proprietary model, meaning that we're not beholden to any company. We can use any company out there. You talked about insurance ways. The way that you like and the way that you've seen is mainly to build up a cash flow, a tax-free cash flow. So that's one way to use insurance. Another way is to preserve your estate. Another way is key man insurance if you have key employees. There's so many different ways to use insurance. A lot.
Yeah. I think that's what started my curiosity. Really, when we were working on the venture fund and looking to create new ventures, what I was curious about were, one, ways that we can utilize insurance to help shore up investors, to make sure that they felt that if something were to happen in the early stages of those organizations, that there would be some opportunity to potentially recapture investment dollars. And so we looked at not only key man policies, but even when you're in partnerships, buy sell agreements, because I learned in my early years of both creating and structuring joint ventures that in the beginning, when you're putting together the venture, the business and the parties, everyone seems to get along really well. Problem is, when you stop getting along really well, how then do you separate the assets and distribute proceeds if there are proceeds to be distributed? How do you allow principals who have been either founders or at the beginning of the business, how do they walk away with something?
Well,
Yeah.
A good buy-sell agreement, got to have that in place. Got to have that in place.
Yeah.
The back of taxes, when you think about what's going on right now in our economy, COVID, 92 cents of every tax dollar went towards Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and just the interest on our debt. Just those four things.
Whoa. Roll that back again. I want to make sure that we heard that. How much?
92 cents or 92% of every federal tax dollar went to those four things: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. So that left 8 cents for the Smithsonian, Congress, White House, Navy, Army, you name it. Food stamps, everything else you can think about. So we're in a pretty bad spot prior to COVID. Now, when you think about COVID, we've laid on close to $4 trillion more of debt. We're treading water right now as a nation. And part of the problem, boomers and the generation before me, I'm a baby boomer, but the generation before me, we're living longer. When Social Security first came about, you could collect it at 65, but life expectancy was 62. So if you got it for a few years, that was when Franklin Roosevelt was in office. If you got it for a few years, you probably passed away. But right now, when you think about it, people living in their 80s, 90s, even to 100, we're going to just be on those entitlements for forever. So somebody's got to pay for them. And the source of revenue for the federal government is taxes. That's their source of revenue, period. Yeah.
So that's interesting, because when we think about taxes, and we are nearing the end of March, so we're about to move into April. Thankfully, there was an extension. So for a lot of folks, the April 15th deadline has been extended to, I think it's May 15th, but at least about 30 days forward. So you have a little bit of additional time to think about your taxes. But one of the things that I notice that happens so often with entrepreneurs is that they tend to have their taxes prepared, but they are not doing tax planning strategies. And it seems like what you and I are talking about is really the difference, the distinction. We're talking more about how you plan for taxes so that you're able to make better decisions about your money in advance, not at the end, sort of, it's like, I think tax planning gives you the opportunity to look ahead and forecast, where just preparing those taxes is more or less like driving, looking at your rearview mirror, because it's already been done. So what can you do at that point to change what's already been established in terms of the outcomes and your tax liability?
I think people need to employ someone like you, to be honest with you, Stephanie, where someone can plan with them. I mean, they're busy running their business. That's all they really know. That's all they really care about. And to them, there's no taxes if they don't make any revenue. And I get that. So they're working hard on that end to try to create the revenue, but they need somebody alongside with them to get during the course of the year so they can do some planning. A lot of people wait till the 11th hour. It's December 1st, and all of a sudden they're looking at it, or it's the end of their fiscal year, they're looking at it. So yeah, some planning ahead of time is very, very important if they can do that along the way.
Yeah, and I know you and we've had this opportunity where we dealt with a few clients who were able to sell their business in a advantaged state, where they were able to look at more of, how do I allocate? Or in particular, I know we've had conversations about clients looking to shift asset classes. Specifically, we talked about clients with 1031 exchanges being able to have some alternatives to the deadline around the 1031 exchange. Are we able to talk about some of those strategies just a little bit. I think probably some people, I know the real estate market has been hot in California for sure. It doesn't look like there's any slowdown at the time. But in some of those instances where, and then unfortunately, there have been loss of life. So families dealing with estate planning and things of that nature because they lost a loved one. And because of that, they've got real estate and other assets that they have to address in order to transfer, those assets or that wealth to the heirs, and how to do so in a seamless manner so that it's not as tied up. I was talking to someone, their family just had a death, and he's like, well, the assets are going to be caught up in litigation for the next 5 years. What a waste.
Yeah. On the commercial side, commercial real estate side, I think a lot of the companies have kind of figured out, wow, we did well during COVID with employees working from home. So why do we need to lease all that space we were leasing? So we've had several owners of commercial properties wanting to get out in a tax favored manner. There's about 4 different ways that I know of, meaning that we can defer taxes versus doing a 1031 exchange into a like property and get a client liquid. So, some take you out as long as 30 years of deferring it. There's also ways to defer even beyond that if you want to. There's some ways that you can defer, you get cash over a period of time, it's extended 10 years and you get some cash, 10 years, you get some more cash. But there's several different ways out there to defer on a long-term basis. And that's what most clients are gravitating towards, because that way, a lot of my commercial clients anyway, they're in their 70s or 80s. They want to help their grandchildren go to college, buy a home, because it's very difficult to buy homes nowadays in terms of the capital needed. And this is a way for them to get liquid and see their wealth distributed among their family while they're living, as opposed to passing it on. So having the good financial plan in place, shifting gears on a personal front, having the right estate plan in place, talking to an estate attorney, making sure you have your trust, your will, your financial directives if something were to happen to you, your financial directives and medical directives if something were to happen. Someone is going to take charge of those things for you if you cannot, are extremely important. Yeah.
And that was a mouthful. So you're talking about medical, you're talking about estate, you're talking about, tell me, you said, so medical.
Medical and financial directives. So think about if you're in a coma, for example, I'm using an extreme example. When you're in a coma, who's going to decide your financial affairs while you're in that coma? If you're in a state where you may not being kept on by life support, who is going to decide to pull the plug, or not pull the plug, for lack of another word. And a lot of times siblings will fight, kids will fight to live longer. No, mom wouldn't want to live like this, or dad doesn't want to be like this. You got to have those things in place so there's really no guessing involved, and kind of eliminate the fighting among the children and the surviving people.
It's so true. I think I've lived through the trauma of death, sudden death, and people unfortunately not being prepared. And
Right.
That means that you end up involved in lengthy, in some cases, litigation where everyone is just fighting. That's the saddest call that I get, is when someone calls me and says one of their family members passed and everything was not in order.
I still see fights even when things are in order. It's funny how money brings out the worst in people many times, Matter of fact, I have a couple fights going on right now with siblings. Parents are now gone. Mom left money. She was a surviving spouse, left a specific way. And everybody wants to challenge how that money was left because, mom stayed with me. I should get more. I visit her more. I should get more. There's all kind of different things that are going on in these people's mind. Yeah.
I definitely lived through that as well. One where we thought we had everything planned out and it didn't matter. People decide that they want to change and do all kinds of things. And so it's important to think about these things. And a lot of times people feel like they don't want to have these conversations, but definitely these are important conversations to have. Because when I think about it, each of our lives, we work hard and we create whatever we create in our lifetime, but what is your legacy? If you have children, if you have family, how is it that you want to empower them with what it is you created through your life's work? And so I think you should spend some time thinking about those things and making sure that those thoughts have been shared, accepted, agreed. I'm now of the mindset for not only are you to have all of your documents and records in order, but you should have it all videotaped too.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, you should definitely.
Witnesses, so that we know that you weren't being, held
Under duress. Yeah, under duress. That's right. That's right.
It's like every which way, that you can protect yourself, because it's really sad. It's really sad what happens. But anyway, so back to a high note. So outside of the kind of real estate or the assets, what are some of the opportunities that you see right now? You were talking about real estate and commercial operators recognizing the opportunity to potentially downsize, maybe not holding as much in their portfolio, or maybe
or
not
diversify.
Diversifying that portfolio a little bit more. What about people looking to sell businesses now? You mentioned that some of the boomers, a lot of boomers are not only have exited corporate life, but some are ready to exit private practices and begin to exchange those companies. Are there any things that they should consider before preparing to sell a business that may allow them to have a more favored outcome as it relates to the tax treatment of that trade?
Well, the way we can help people defer taxes is the same. It's any privately held asset. But to your point, I think preparation to sell, a lot of people shortchange that. They just show up and say, I want to sell my business. But making sure your books are right, making sure your financial statements are in the best light, because it's all about the valuation. If you get the right, and you got to have a valuation on your business. If you don't have the proper valuation, it's not saying what you think your business really is. And everybody thinks their business is worth more than it is. Everybody thinks their building is worth more than it is. But determine, what you're going to sell your property for, or your business. And then the same strategies, any privately held asset, any privately held business, any family held business, we can still help you defer taxes in a very favorable way. One thing I want to point out too, Stephanie, when people are thinking about retirement, the corporate people, they've been putting money in their 401k, their 403b, their 457, 401a. What they don't understand is that they're in partnership with the government. So the government can change their percentage of that partnership at any time. Right now, the max tax rate is 37%. But because we're going to need more revenue, the government can raise taxes up to 50%. Again, you're in partnership with the federal government on those deferred accounts. So I would say continue to put money in your 401k. That's free money. You don't want to give it away. So do it up to the match. But anything else, you might want to shift to places where you'll have tax-free income streams, when you retire, because 0% times any tax bracket is still going to be 0. So I would look at those different types of options.
That's excellent. It's interesting. We're talking about people living longer. And then I also want to segue and talk about cryptocurrency. Dr. Thyonne was asking a question about cryptocurrency. So maybe you can factor in your early response. But definitely, as we think about people living longer, which is what the wellness centers and spas are about, that I'm working on, is the idea that, as Dr. Oliver shared, full life is considered 120 years, which I didn't know this. And so this idea of, oh my goodness, if you need to make your money last you for 120 years, then we have a bunch of planning to do.
Oh yeah. What you're learning though, when you retire, the market's going to do this, right? So when you retire, when the market's doing this, you still need an income.
Yeah.
So how do you level out those peaks and valleys to where you have consistent income, and to your point, an income stream that you want that money to continue on. And that's what I think that when you look at tax favored ways or tax free ways, tax free streams of income, those are the ways that you can sustain income for an extended period of time beyond normal life expectancy, which right now is in its 80s. And most of us are going to live well past 80. So
Exactly. With so many different, and I also think that people are so aware at the moment because of the global pandemic about their health that a lot of people are taking the efforts to do things to reset, to address where maybe they had allowed health, to be at the low end of the spectrum in terms of focus. We've all been really aware of our health, at least for this last year. And so a lot of people have been taking efforts to mitigate any areas where they felt that they were vulnerable, which I think is great because then that's an opportunity to extend your life further. So with that, let's kind of talk a little bit about, digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, these conversations, the currencies, at the very beginning when everyone was really concerned about the legitimacy of these bitcoins, were they going to last, were they going to, and since then we've gone from bitcoin to a number of different types of coin iterations, and more importantly looking at the infrastructure of the blockchain and understanding how that infrastructure in and of itself offers value in a number of sectors. The blockchain technology can be utilized across asset classes, across business industries, as ways to keep track of exchanges, of contracts, of agreements, of financial, relationships. And so tell us a little bit about what you are seeing from your perspective and kind of your lens around crypto and digital currencies.
well, several years ago, one of the master traders of Bitcoin approached me to buy some Bitcoin, and I just didn't see it. I didn't get currency that would last. I didn't want to lose any money, so I didn't make the investment. And that's when Bitcoin was at $3,000 a share. And as you know, right now it's trading close to $60,000 a share. I was in Florida just 3 weeks ago, as a matter of fact, with some Bitcoin millionaires, hearing their stories. Right now with Bitcoin, you have your Bit card. You can buy cars. You can buy, because money has to filter through the system to buy a house, and you have to document it and so forth. But you can buy cars and everything else with Bitcoin right now. I think it is the currency of the future. It seems like it anyway. It's flying high, and when big guys like Musk and others get involved with it, it spurs it up even more so, or takes advantage of it even more so. But it seems like it's going to be the currency of the future. And different digital currencies right now, which one's going to stick, which one's going to be the primary and driving currency. It seems like Bitcoin, if I had to pick one right now, but I'm not 100% sure. You have your digital wallet where all your money is in there, and you can, like I said, buy almost everything but a house. It's just a regular credit card. Nobody knows that you even have it. One of the things, though, the federal government did on your tax return, saying, do you have digital currency? So if you have it, check that box, because you don't want to have it and not have checked that box and have them figure it out. So back to the government being hungry for revenue, they're trying to figure out a way to tax Bitcoin. Right now, they can't track it. I'm sure the Biden administration has hired some experts on that front to try to figure out how to tax it, or try to figure out the transactions so they can be more on top of it. But in terms of it being a currency going forward, yes, I think it will be. Dollars, gold, all that kind of stuff are just, I don't want to say things of the past, but they're slowly but surely being taken over by these new different types of currency. I mean, we're in a global economy now. It's not just the United States anymore. It's all of us together, work everywhere. And that's probably going to be the thing of choice. And nobody's giving anybody cash anymore. I mean, how much cash you really carry on yourself? It's all done digitally. I mean, whether if it was from your big bank account or Bitcoin, it's going to be done digitally. Yeah.
Right. Well, definitely when we think about global organizations, I know that's one of the things that we're factoring in is, not only where the companies are established, but you have currency risk when you're doing business in multiple currencies. And so to the degree that you can have a stable currency that tends to allow transactions to happen throughout regions of the world and mitigate some of that currency risk, that's going to be an important factor for, global conglomerates, which is what I look at and what I see, we're doing at this particular time. And that makes it exciting and definitely makes it a little bit more interesting. Forget about tax returns just from a US perspective, but how do you manage, the assets and the requirements when you have entities all over the world and they're all operating under different jurisdictions and requirements. So
yeah, the FX space, the FX foreign exchange space is it's still there, but taking it over fairly soon.
Right.
In terms of global currency. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So in not only that, but also like typical organizations, when we go back to sort of the public markets and dealing with businesses, one of the ways that we've raised capital in the past is looking at companies that go through a process of being privately held to going public. The digital currencies offer the opportunity for initial coin offerings, which also is another way of raising capital for businesses. And it looks like that has gained traction and will continue to grow. And so I think because of those other contributors to the overall ecosystem, that we'll see more and more offerings as it relates to coins around specific initiatives, specific business ideas and opportunities. And that too begins to diversify the market and opportunities from the layperson to the more seasoned investor in terms of diversifying their wallet. Maybe you have Bitcoin, maybe you have, whatever other token that you have decided to invest in. Maybe you have a portfolio of tokens that you've invested in or you're supporting because some of them support other causes or things of that nature. So I think it's definitely still in that emerging infancy stage, but I think there's a lot more on the horizon and definitely something that we should look at and consider as we're looking at how we diversify our assets and still continue to build wealth long term.
And when I was in Florida, I was there mainly to talk to them about diversifying from Bitcoin. Because, like with anything, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So how can you shift some of your money to some place that's more stable, something that doesn't have the volatility that we've seen in Bitcoin, that will be long lasting, and to your point earlier, create an income stream that you won't, that 120 years old. So we talked a lot about that. Bitcoin is going to reach, who knows what the high is going to be. I mean, who would have thought it'd be 60,000 a share, 50-something thousand dollars a share when it was $300 a share probably just 6 years ago, 5 years ago. It's crazy. I'm not an expert on that by far. I can always get one to be on your show if you want to go through digital currency. But it's a moving target to me, and it's not stable yet, which is concerning to someone my age. But when I look at the younger group, it's probably the place to be right now. I mean, I need stability. It depends. Everything's done by your time horizon. I don't have a long runway compared to my son, who has a lot longer runway. So he could deal with the volatility, the ups and downs of digital. And older who have digital currency, like I said, I was trying to encourage them to diversify into more stable places and create some tax-free streams of income. Because I think that Bitcoin will be taxed eventually, one way or another. Yeah.
One way or another.
One way or another.
We always get to that. Well, Eric, it's been a pleasure to have a conversation with you today. How can our listeners get in touch with you? What's the best way to find you?
Well, you can call me. My number is 949-201-6525. And you can me at Bell, BELLINSSOLINC.
All right. So I'll put that in the chat box so that they can reach out to you. EB, Eric, L, Insurance.
But I appreciate you having me. There's a lot more we could talk. We probably talk about this for a long time. streams of income. I'm a proponent of that. And I'm a proponent that, you just need, if you earn more, you need to keep more. Definitely.
Yeah, that's for sure. Earn more, keep more. Seems like it works in the opposite. Earn more, pay more. So earn more, keep more definitely is a
ways to get around that. And there's also ways to position yourself better when retirement does come, so that you don't outlive your money on a tax-free basis.
Wonderful. Well, I have placed your contact information in the box, so hopefully folks can get some information. And then I'll also announce some of the upcoming presentations, because I know you're often speaking and sharing information through different podcasts, programs, and blogs and all of those things. Dr. TG, I know you're backstage. I wonder, shake your hand if you need to say a final concluding thought. Let me know if you need to jump back in on the conversation before we shut it down. Let's see. I think there's a slight delay there. All right. Well, then with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for us. This was Money and Mindset with the Doctors. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money. And our guest today was Eric Bell from Bell Insurance Solutions, Inc. Thanks so much, Eric. Everyone, we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for having me.
Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time now, Pacific Daylight Time. So 9 a.m. See you Tuesday. And until then, don't forget about that money and that mindset. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.